Welcome to Psalm 49. God shall ransom my soul. A ransom, and there's also the word redeem. It's the same Greek word. Generally, you ransom a person or you redeem an object. And we get to that spot in this psalm. We'll expound on that. But this sounds like a psalm that might have been written by Solomon. It's almost like a proverb. To the director, as always, to the sons of Korah, which it has been, quite a few of the last 5 or 6, 7, 8 psalms. Psalmos, as it has been a psalm, something that can be sung. Acoustate, here, acoustics comes from that. Hear these things, all the nations, or all nations, in the imperative. So this is not just for the Jews. It's a psalm that's for all the nations, which we are of if we're not Jewish. Give ear, all dwelling the inhabitable world. Everybody. And at that time, the inhabitable world was around the Mediterranean as far as they knew. Of course, we know that people lived in Asia, they lived in North and South America and Australia and all these other places in the world. So this is for everybody, both the earthborn and the sons of men together. Geganis, we have G is earth, Ge, and Genis, Genesis, born. So you can add that to your English derivatives book if you'd like. And the sons of anthropon, anthropology, derivative, together. Now, what's the difference between earthborn and the sons of men? I don't know. It's like, well, the sons of men, now somebody could go back and to Genesis where you had the giants and expound on that and make this into something that it might not be. It might just be earthborn and the sons of men together, the same, are the ones born in the land. Could be land-born in the land of Israel, the rich and the needy. So everybody, basically. My stoma, a stomatic, has to do with your mouth. It speaks Sophian, philosophy, wisdom, and the meditation of my heart, understanding. And so here I see Solomon writing this because he has the wisdom beyond all men at the time. In the meditation of my heart, understanding things that I understand. Kardias. Now, the heart doesn't meditate as we know it, but it's a figure of speech. Klino, recline. I will lean my ear to a paravoline, to a parable. I will open my riddle with a psaltery. Now we have other words here that can be added to the English derivatives book. Psalterio is a psaltery. Now, it's not the same as the psaltery that we have today, which was pretty well invented in the early 20th century, used in Appalachian. It was an instrument that had strings on it, and you had a bow that you would play it and so forth. That was the psaltery that you can see today being played. It was in Appalachian places. Very beautiful instrument. Thinking about getting one and playing it because it's so pretty. I heard if you're good on it, I'm not good on any instrument, so I'm staying away from it, but I would have liked to. And then the problema, a problem or a riddle, and that is a derivative problem. Why do I fovume, fear, phobia, in the wicked day, when lawlessness at my heel shall encircle me? I sort of feel that way today. The country I live in is no longer a Christian country. It's all split up, the United States, Canada, the whole world is in upheaval, people moving all over the place, bringing their different religions. I don't see a single country anymore that is a Christian country at all, even close. And sad, but it talks about that in 2 Thessalonians, the great defection. I believe that's going on, and Islam seems to be taking over, which may happen until they run into God using Israel. That's what I look at, the next major step in the world. So why do I fear when lawlessness at my heels shall encircle me? So a lot of the lawlessness going on is, I could just write a list of it, but I'm not going to. All sorts of things. It just gets into politics and so forth. The ones yielding upon their power, even the ones boasting upon the multitude of their riches. And the wealthy have now taken over in the United States as far as the media controlling people's thoughts as much as they can, and the boasting. A brother does not ransom. Now, our brother ransoms not. Well, he could ransom if it was in his ability and needed to do it, but it's more or less saying that this ransom isn't going on as far as what ransoming is here. And shall a man ransom? So now we see a ransom, and as I mentioned, a redeem would be a thing. So if you had a object and you took it to a pawn shop and you wanted to get money for it, had a trumpet and got $100, and then they keep it and give you a little ticket, you can come back and get it back for you pay more money, and that's called the redeem. You ransom it, you redeem it. You give them the money, plus the 10% interest or whatever it is, and you get your trumpet back. So that is one form. Another one sort of is paying a fine. You owe the government for doing something illegal, an automobile maybe, and you get a ticket, and the ticket you have to go and pay a ransom, a redeeming. You have to redeem it. You pay for it. Another form of a ransom is a dowry. And a dowry, it's very confusing to get into exactly what a dowry is, but it's basically money paid up front, so an injured party would have something to fall back on. And then in Exodus 13:13, we have the ransom of animals for things that God requires or so forth. And it says, every newborn opening wide the womb of donkey, you shall barter for sheep. Now this has to do with firstborn. If it's a donkey, it's not acceptable to God, but the sheep is, so you can change maybe, if it's a donkey you had, then you you get a sheep and you exchange it for the donkey, and that's acceptable in the tabernacle or temple. But if you should not barter it, that is, give them the sheep, you shall ransom it. That means pay money. Every firstborn of man, and then another one, every firstborn of man of your sons you shall ransom. You pay money to basically to the temple, to the tabernacle. And the other one is Exodus 13:13. Every firstborn of man of your sons you shall ransom. Then in Leviticus 19:20 it says, and if any man should go to bed with a woman in the marriage bed of semen, and she is a domestic servant being guarded for a man, be a wife, and to her ransoms have not been ransomed, there is no money put up, or freedom was not given to her, and overseeing will be to them. They shall not die, for she was not set free by the ransom or by the person that owned a domestic servant. Leviticus 19:20. We also have a ransom to God. It's Exodus 6:6. It mentions, and I will ransom you with high arm and great judgment. And that was in ransom. God ransomed Israel, who was taken captive by the Egyptians. And God paid the ransom by destroying their army, basically, the firstborn. And mainly the firstborn of the Egyptians were paid as a ransom. And this went into, God took this even into Israel to also had to pay the ransom of the firstborn. But instead of killing them, then the person could pay the ransom, where to God, the death paid the ransom. There's also a ransoming with people involved. And early on, we see ships were taken captive by pirates. It goes all the way back even to Julius Caesar, who was captured by pirates, and he had to pay 50 talents to get himself out. And then he told them that he would come after him when he got back, and he got up an army, and he went back there and crucified all the ones, caught them all, and crucified them. Another great kidnapping was Richard the Lionheart of England, coming back from the Crusades. He was captured in Europe, Eastern Europe, and they had to pay $3.3 billion in today's money to get him out. England did, and they tried to get all this money to pay. A famous writer, Miguel Cervantes, who wrote Don Quixote, he also was kidnapped by the Barbary pirates and had to pay 500 gold ducats to get himself out. More modern, in my lifetime, the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped and killed, and the ransom was $50,000. And this was the man, Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh, who flew across, the first person to fly across the Atlantic Ocean from someplace in New Jersey to Paris, France, to claim a prize for the first person to cross. And then afterwards, the baby was kidnapped and by a man called Bruno Hauptmann, and was caught. He was executed. And then later, a real famous kidnapping was a lady named Patty Hearst, who was a granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst, the publisher of Hearst newspapers. And he paid a $2 million ransom. There are other famous ransoms. But what is the most famous ransom of all times? The highest price paid for any ransom at all times. It says in Matthew 20:28, "And the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom instead of many." The ransom of Jesus Christ was the highest price paid. It says in 1 Timothy 2:6, "The one giving himself as a ransom for all people, the testimony to be rendered in his own time." And then in 1 Timothy 2:14, "Who gave himself for us, that he should ransom us from all lawlessness, and should cleanse to himself a prized people, zealous of good works." So the highest price paid for a ransom was the one that Christ paid for you and me to get us out. Hades, it was the place that we would have been captured forever, and the reason why we would have been gone there was because we would have been sent by God. Because Jesus says, don't fear the one who can harm you in this world, but the one that can throw you into Gehenna, can throw you into Hades. Him you should fear. And so this is where all sinners will go, which we all are. So everyone would be going to Hades. But the ransom, the redemption, I think King James uses redemption more than ransom. The redemption, the ransom that Jesus paid satisfied God, just as the ransoming of the sheep for the donkey, and it is acceptable by God, and so therefore we are freed, and it says freed from lawlessness, which is a good thing, and being with Him. So this is the highest price paid for ransom, the horrible death of Jesus Christ for us on the cross. Now it goes back into verse 8, and it says about the ransom, even the value of the ransoming his soul, a man shall not give it. You can't ransom yourself. If you're in jail, you can't just ransom yourself. Pay it. Even if he labored into the eon, nothing you can do once you're in Hades. Even if he shall live till the end, that he should not see corruption. Can't do it, but we can with Jesus, and they didn't have this yet. Whenever he should behold wise ones dying, the foolish one and the mindless one shall perish together, and they shall leave behind their riches to strangers. In their tombs, and the uselessness of life, especially without Christ, once it's over, it's over, and you're not going to take anything with you. And their tombs are their houses into the eon. Their tombs are basically whatever you own keeps on going, and that's your tomb, even though you're not actually buried there. They're tents unto generation and generation, which these people could understand better because a lot of them lived in tents. They call the lands after their names. So we have different countries and areas that were called after people's name, like the Ammonites and the Moabites, Jebusites. But they keep going, but the person doesn't. A man, a being in honor perceived not. Now, exactly here, he resembles the unthinking cattle. So a man being in honor, even though he is an important person, he doesn't understand, which a lot of people don't understand the ways of Christ. I have a friend who is a adamant leftist, anarchist type guy, blames corporations and looks at, I don't know, it's just, far to the left. But yet, the other day I got to talking to him, and I told him about, ransoming and Hades and being there, and he never heard anything like that before. And it's got him thinking. So hopefully he thinks more on it. So he resembles the person that thinks he perceives. Their way is an obstacle to them. And if you're tied into this philosophy or politics that man can do anything, man is the ruler of his destiny, man can change the weather, man can do all these things, this is an obstacle. And after these things, they take pleasure with their mouths. They hear these. My friend goes to the library, which everything in it is probably from the 70s and the 80s, and he reads stuff, and it's like anything that comes out of his mind and mouth has got to be true. And they placed them as sheep in Hades. Death tends them. Once they're gone, once you're in Hades, dead, it tends them. You're like a sheep that's being taken by Hades, and whatever happens in Hades, you can see a lot of videos on the internet. People have near-death experience and have went to Hades and come back and so forth, and it's not going to be a pleasant place. And the upright shall dominate them in the morning. Now, I look at that as like in the morning, as in the going into the next life. That would be sort of a figure here in the morning. Why would it just be in the morning? Why wouldn't it be at nighttime? But in something early all day long, more or less, the upright will dominate them. Well, that's not always the case. A lot of times evil people dominate the upright, but I believe that in the most times the upright will dominate the others, and God allows some of the upright to suffer by the unrighteous ones, and so people will think it doesn't work. Satan has lied to them and say, well, the evil ones dominate the upright, so why be upright? Why not just be evil? And their help shall grow old in Hades. Now, here we have a story I think that applies to here. It says that Jesus gave this parable, and a certain man was rich, unless it was an actual event, and he dressed in purple and linen, like a wealthy person, being merry daily and glowing. Everything's going great. And there was a certain poor man by name Lazarus, and now this is not the Lazarus that was raised from the dead, a different one apparently, who was laid at his gatehouse, at the gatehouse of the rich man. He was one having sores, and desiring to be filled from the crumbs of the ones falling from the table of the rich man. And also the dogs coming licked his sores to get the dried blood and so forth, salt. And it came to pass for the poor man to die, and for him to be carried by the angels into the bosom of Abraham. Now, the bosom of Abraham is a place, apparently the Jews, because this is before the death of Christ, were taken, and it's not the New Jerusalem as far as I see, or paradise maybe, because Jesus told the one thief that today you will be with me in paradise, and he had not yet died, but yet I suppose that when the evil one, the malefactor on the cross died, then it was after the death of Christ. He actually died before, so. But these different places after death, and this is one of the major ones I see that's different than most. The bosom of Abraham, it calls it. And the rich man also died and was buried. Doesn't say he was carried. And in Hades, so he ends up in Hades, having lifted up his eyes. So somehow God is able to take people to the bosom of Abraham if they are deemed fit, I suppose. But yet this man was not able, and so he was taken to Hades. And lifting up his eyes, being in torment. So we see torment equals Hades, and someplace we don't want to be. A lot of people commit suicide to get away from pain and suffering and bad experiences, and they end up in Hades, and it'll be worst case scenario to do that. While you have the chance, now is the time to accept Jesus Christ and his ransoming, and to change your life, to follow the precepts of Jesus in the Word. And the rich man sees Abraham from far off, real far off. He sees Abraham, who is that up there? And Lazarus in his enfolded arms. Abraham's got a hold of Lazarus, walking with him maybe. And the rich man, speaking out loud, he said, "O Father Abraham, show mercy on me, and send forth Lazarus, that he should dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I grieve in this flame." Oh, that's horrible to think that we'd be in something so hot. It would be like the hottest places on Death Valley on steroids. It would be so hot, and I can't imagine. I don't want to imagine. And it's like a prison. You can't get out of it, and it's a terrible place. If you're in a penitentiary, okay, it's a bad place to be, but that's nothing compared to the penitentiary you're going to go if you don't give your life over to Jesus Christ. It's imperative for you to change your attitudes, your life towards Jesus, so you won't be in the penitentiary eternally. If you think you have a life sentence on this earth, you got a rough sentence. Wait till you see the sentence that God has prepared for the sinners. And Abraham said, Son, remember that you accepted the good things of yours in your life, and Lazarus in like manner the bad. You each accepted what you had, but now, thus he is comforted, but you grieve. And apparently then Lazarus was deemed worthy to go to Abraham, but the rich man, because he was stingy and didn't give anything to Lazarus or other people, now grieves. And upon all these things, between us and you is a great chasm, hasma, firmly fixed, so that the ones wanting to pass over on this side to you are not able, nor the ones from there to us should pass through. And he said, well, I ask you then, O Father Abraham, that you should send him forth unto the house of my father. For I have 5 brothers, so that he should testify to them, that they should not also come unto this place of torment. And Abraham says, they have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And those Moses and the prophets prophesied Jesus. But he said, no, O Father Abraham, but if one from dead ones should go to them, they will repent. They see somebody coming back from the dead. And Abraham said to him, if Moses and the prophets, they did not hear, and I would add Jesus, not even if one from out of the dead ones should rise up, will they be yielded, who Jesus was, one who rose up from the dead ones. Then it says, except God shall ransom my soul from out of the hand of Hades whenever he should take me, as he did Lazarus, and as he will do with us who have the ransom of Jesus. Do not fear whenever a man should be encircled, or whenever the glory of his house should be multiplied, for he shall not take anything in his dying, nor will his glory go down with him. Even though he's a great man on earth, righteous man on earth, could be a pope, could be a famous person that gave away all their money, but without the ransom, this isn't going to do any good. For his soul shall be blessed in his life. That would be if it was. He shall make acknowledgement to you whenever you should do good to him. He shall enter into the generation of his fathers. Unto the eon he shall not see light. Now this is the person that's not doing the righteous. And a man being in honor and perceived not. So if you're honored, people look up at you and a great person, but you don't perceive the things of Jesus, he resembles the unthinking cattle and is like to them. And you look at the animals, the cattle, and they just look and walk around and seeing where they're going to go and what they're going to do, and they don't really understand anything, very little. And this is the person that's walking through this life dead to Christ. But we are not dead to Christ, are we? No, we need to let others know of the ransoming, death, and crucifixion and resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Psalm 50, the next psalm, the earth is the Lord's. Well, man likes to think it's his, but we'll find out what this is all about in the next video seminar. Hope you'll join us, and God bless.